Marcus Williams pushed open the glass door of Peterson's books and stepped out into the cool evening air. The small bell above the door rang softly behind him as he pulled his dark blue hoodie over his head. His shift had ended at 7 and now the sun was setting, painting the sky in soft orange and pink colors. He was tired but happy. Working at the bookstore was not bad at all. Mr. Peterson was kind to him and Marcus loved being around all those books. He had saved enough money to buy his mother a birthday present next week. The thought made him smile as he walked down Maple Street. The neighborhood was quiet and peaceful. Big houses sat behind well-kept lawns and expensive cars were parked in long driveways. Street lights were starting to turn on one by one. Marcus had walked this same route home from work many times before. It usually took him about 20 minutes to get home. He shifted his backpack on his shoulders. Inside were his work clothes, a few books he was reading, and his water bottle. His mother had asked him to stop at the small grocery store on Oak Street to pick up some milk and bread for dinner. The store was just 2 blocks away from the bookstore. Marcus pulled out his phone to check the time. 7:15. His mother would start cooking dinner soon. She always worried when he was late, even by a few minutes. He typed a quick message to her saying he was stopping at the store and would be home by 8. The grocery store was busy with people buying things for dinner. Marcus got in line behind an old woman buying cat food and vegetables. He held the plastic bag with milk and bread in one hand and scrolled through his phone with the other. His friend Jake had sent him a funny video of a dog trying to catch its own tail. After paying for the groceries, Marcus started walking home again. The streets were getting darker now, but the street lights made everything bright enough to see clearly. He could hear the sound of televisions coming from some of the houses. A few people were walking their dogs or watering their gardens. Marcus lived on Pine Street, which was about 6 blocks away from the grocery store. His family had moved to this neighborhood 3 years ago, when his father got a promotion at his law firm. Before that, they had lived in a smaller apartment across town. Marcus liked their new house. It had a big backyard where his little sister could play, and his room was much bigger than his old one. As he walked, Marcus thought about his homework. He had a math test on Friday and needed to study tonight. He also had to finish reading a chapter for his English class. Junior year was harder than he had expected, but his grades were still good. His parents always told him that education was the most important thing. A car drove slowly past him, but Marcus did not pay much attention to it. Cars drove up and down these streets all the time. He was thinking about whether he should ask Jennifer to the school dance next month. They had been friends since freshman year, and lately, she had been smiling at him more often in the hallways. The plastic bag with the groceries was starting to hurt his fingers, so he switched it to his other hand. His backpack felt heavier too. Maybe he was carrying too many books. His mother always told him he did not need to bring every textbook home every day, but Marcus liked to be prepared. He turned onto Elm Street, walking past the Johnson house with its perfect rose garden. Mrs. Johnson was always outside working in her flowers. She waved at Marcus sometimes when she saw him walking home from work. Tonight her house was quiet, with warm yellow light coming from the windows. Marcus checked his phone again. 7:35. He was making good time. His mother would be happy that he remembered to buy the milk and bread. Last week he had forgotten to stop at the store, and they had to eat dinner without any bread. His father had laughed and said it was not a big problem, but Marcus still felt bad about it. A police car was parked at the corner of Elm and Oak Streets, but Marcus did not think anything of it. Police cars were often in this neighborhood because it was safe and quiet. His father had told him that the police helped keep the area secure, especially after there had been some break-ins a few months ago. Marcus was listening to music on his earbuds now, walking to the beat of his favorite song. He nodded his head slightly and hummed along quietly. The evening was perfect. Not too hot, not too cold. A gentle breeze made the leaves on the trees move softly. He thought about his part-time job again. Mr. Peterson had said that Marcus was one of his best workers. Marcus showed up on time, was polite to customers, and knew a lot about books. Maybe next summer he could work more hours and save money for college. His parents would help him pay for university, but Marcus wanted to contribute too. As he walked past the Miller house, Marcus saw their cat sitting on the front porch. The orange cat always sat in the same spot every evening, watching people walk by. Marcus had tried to pet it once, but the cat had run away. Tonight, the cat just looked at him with its green eyes. Marcus was now only 4 blocks away from home. He could almost smell his mother's cooking. She was probably making her famous chicken and rice dish. His stomach started to rumble and he realized he was hungry. He had eaten a sandwich at lunch, but that was many hours ago. The street was getting quieter as more people went inside their houses for dinner. Marcus could see the warm glow of lights in windows and the blue flickering of television screens. Everything felt normal and peaceful, just like every other evening when he walked home from work. He pulled out his phone one more time to text his mother that he would be home in 10 minutes. As he typed the message, Marcus did not notice the police car that had started following him slowly down the street. The officer inside was watching him carefully, and Marcus had no idea that his peaceful evening was about to change completely. The police car pulled up beside Marcus so quietly that he did not hear it at first. He was still walking and listening to his music when he noticed a bright light shining on him from the side. Marcus stopped walking and pulled out his earbuds, turning to see what was happening. Officer Bradley Thompson rolled down the window of his patrol car and looked at Marcus with suspicious eyes. Thompson was a big man with short gray hair and a thick mustache. He had been a police officer for 15 years and thought he was good at spotting trouble. "Hey you," Thompson called out in a loud voice. "What are you doing walking around this neighborhood?" Marcus was surprised by the question, but he tried to stay calm. His parents had always taught him to be polite to police officers. He walked closer to the car and spoke in a respectful voice. "Good evening, officer. I'm just walking home from work," Marcus said. He held up the plastic bag with the groceries. "I stopped to buy some things for my mother." Thompson looked Marcus up and down, paying attention to his hoodie and jeans. The officer had been patrolling this area because there had been reports of someone breaking into cars. When he saw Marcus walking alone, something about the teenager made him suspicious. "Work? Where do you work?" Thompson asked, his voice getting harder. "At Peterson's Books on Maple Street. I work there part-time after school," Marcus answered. He was starting to feel uncomfortable, but he did not understand why the officer was asking so many questions. Thompson got out of his car and stood in front of Marcus. The officer was much taller and bigger than the teenager. He put his hands on his belt, right next to his handcuffs and radio. "I've been getting reports about someone walking around here, looking at houses and cars. Someone matching your description," Thompson said, even though this was not completely true. The reports had been about someone much older, but Thompson decided that Marcus looked suspicious anyway. Marcus felt his heart start to beat faster. He had never been in trouble with the police before. He had never even gotten a detention at school. "Officer, I think there might be a mistake. I live in this neighborhood. I walk home from work this way every day." "Sure you do," Thompson said with a nasty smile. "And I suppose you have proof of that?" Marcus reached into his back pocket to get his wallet, but Thompson quickly stepped forward and grabbed his wrist. "Slow down there. Keep your hands where I can see them," the officer said in an angry voice. "I was just trying to get my ID," Marcus said, his voice shaking a little now. "I can show you my address." Thompson let go of Marcus's wrist but kept watching him carefully. "You're telling me you live around here? In one of these big houses? A kid like you?" Marcus did not understand what the officer meant by a kid like you, but something about the way Thompson said it made him feel bad. "Yes, sir. I live on Pine Street with my parents and my little sister." "Pine Street," Thompson repeated like he did not believe it. "That's a pretty expensive street for someone your age to be living on." "I live there with my family," Marcus said again. He was getting more nervous, but he tried to keep his voice steady. "My father is a lawyer and my mother is a teacher." Thompson laughed, but it was not a nice laugh. "A lawyer and a teacher, huh? That's a good story. And what's your name, son?" "Marcus Williams," the teenager answered quickly. "I can call my parents if you want to check." "I bet you can," Thompson said. "But first I want to know what you were really doing walking around here. Were you looking for unlocked cars? Checking to see which houses might be empty?" Marcus could not believe what he was hearing. "No, sir. I would never do anything like that. I was just walking home from work, and I stopped at the store to buy milk and bread for my mother." Thompson walked around Marcus in a slow circle, like a lion walking around its prey. Other people in the neighborhood were starting to notice what was happening. Mrs. Chen, from across the street, had come out to get her mail and was watching from her driveway. Mr. Davis was standing on his front porch, with his arms crossed. "You know what I think?" Thompson said, stopping right in front of Marcus again. I think you're casing this neighborhood. I think you're looking for houses to break into later. Maybe you're working with a gang or something? That's not true, Marcus said, his voice getting louder. I'm a good student. I work at the bookstore. I've never been in trouble in my life. Well, that's what they all say, Thompson replied. Now I want you to empty your pockets and your backpack. Put everything on the ground so I can see what you're carrying. Marcus looked around at all the people watching him. He felt embarrassed and scared. He had seen videos online of police officers treating people badly, but he never thought it would happen to him. Do I have to do that? I haven't done anything wrong. Thompson's face got red with anger. Are you refusing to cooperate with a police officer? Because that's obstruction, and I can arrest you for that. No, sir, I'm not refusing, Marcus said quickly. I just don't understand why you think I did something wrong. I don't like your attitude, Thompson said. And I don't like the way you're dressed walking around this nice neighborhood like you own the place. Now empty your pockets or I'll do it for you. Marcus felt like he was in a bad dream. This could not be happening to him. He was a good kid. He got good grades, worked hard at his job, and always listened to his parents. But the police officer was looking at him like he was a criminal. More neighbors were coming out of their houses now. Some of them looked worried, but others just seemed curious about what was happening. Marcus recognized a few faces from when he walked home from work, but none of them said anything to help him. Thompson was getting impatient. I'm waiting, he said in a threatening voice. And I'm not going to wait much longer. Marcus felt tears starting to form in his eyes, but he tried not to let them fall. He did not want to cry in front of all these people. He did not want to look weak or guilty, but he was scared and he did not know what to do. Please, officer, Marcus said quietly. I just want to go home to my family. I haven't done anything wrong. I can prove that I live here. You can prove it by doing what I told you to do, Thompson said. Empty your pockets and your backpack now. Marcus looked at the grocery bag in his hand, then at his backpack, then at all the people watching him. He felt completely alone and helpless. This was supposed to be his neighborhood where he was safe. But now he felt like a stranger, like someone who did not belong. He had no choice but to do what the officer said. Marcus slowly put his grocery bag on the ground and took off his backpack. His hands were shaking as he unzipped it. Officer Thompson stood over him, watching every move like Marcus was dangerous. The teenager felt sick to his stomach. Hurry up, Thompson said impatiently. I don't have all night. Marcus pulled out his work uniform first, a clean white shirt and black pants that Mr. Peterson required all employees to wear. Thompson picked up the shirt and looked at it suspiciously, as if it might be stolen. Peterson's books. Thompson read the small logo on the shirt pocket. Anyone can get one of these shirts. Doesn't prove you work there. Next, Marcus took out his math textbook, his English book, and a notebook full of his homework. The pages were covered with his neat handwriting and careful diagrams. Thompson flipped through the notebook quickly, not really looking at anything. Could be anyone's books, the officer said, throwing the notebook on the ground. Some of the pages scattered in the wind, and Marcus watched his hard work blow away. Please be careful with that, Marcus said quietly. I need it for school tomorrow. You'll worry about school when I say you can worry about school, Thompson snapped. Keep emptying that bag. Marcus pulled out his water bottle, some pens, his work name tag, and a small bag of trail mix his mother had packed for him. Thompson examined each item like it was evidence of a crime. The officer held up the name tag and read it out loud. Marcus Williams, Peterson's books, Thompson said. This could be fake. These things are easy to make. A woman walking her dog had stopped to watch what was happening. She was holding her phone, and Marcus wondered if she was recording. More people were gathering on their porches and looking out their windows. Marcus had never felt so embarrassed in his life. Now your pockets, Thompson ordered. Marcus reached into his front pockets and pulled out his wallet, his house keys, and some loose change. Thompson grabbed the wallet and opened it roughly. Inside was Marcus's school ID, his debit card, and $23 in cash. Where did you get this money? Thompson asked, holding up the bills. From my job, Marcus answered. Mr. Peterson pays me every Friday. $23 isn't much money for someone who claims to have a job, Thompson said. Maybe you've been spending your money on drugs, or maybe you stole this. I bought groceries with some of it, Marcus said, pointing to the milk and bread on the ground. And I'm saving the rest. Thompson looked at Marcus's school ID for a long time. The picture was clearly Marcus, and it had his name and the school's official seal. But the officer still was not satisfied. "This could be fake, too," Thompson said. "Kids today can make fake IDs on their computers." Marcus could not believe what he was hearing. "Why would I fake a school ID? That doesn't make any sense." "Don't tell me what makes sense," Thompson said angrily. "I've been doing this job longer than you've been alive. I know trouble when I see it." The crowd of neighbors was getting bigger. Marcus recognized Mrs. Rodriguez from down the street. She taught at his elementary school when he was little. But even she just stood there watching, not saying anything to help him. Thompson picked up the house keys and looked at them closely. These could be to any house. Probably stolen from someone's car or purse. "They're my house keys," Marcus said desperately. "I can show you. I live at 847 Pine Street. We can walk there right now and I can prove it." "Oh, I'm sure you know the address," Thompson said with that same nasty smile. "You've probably been watching that house planning to break in." Marcus felt like screaming. Nothing he said made any difference. The officer had already decided that Marcus was guilty of something, and no amount of proof was going to change his mind. Thompson made Marcus turn out his back pockets too. There was nothing in them except a piece of lint and a small wrapper from a candy bar. The officer acted like even these things were suspicious. "You're pretty clean for someone who's innocent," Thompson said. "Most criminals try to hide their evidence better." "I'm not a criminal," Marcus said, his voice cracking. "I'm just a kid trying to get home." "Just a kid," Thompson repeated mockingly. "Just a kid who happens to be walking around a rich neighborhood after dark, carrying a backpack looking at houses." "I wasn't looking at houses," Marcus protested. "I was looking at my phone. I was texting my mother." Thompson grabbed Marcus's phone from where it had fallen next to his backpack. "Let's see about that," the officer said, trying to unlock the screen. "You can't look at my phone without a warrant," Marcus said. He had learned about constitutional rights in his government class. Thompson's face turned even redder. "Oh, so now you're a lawyer too? First you live in a fancy house, then your daddy's a lawyer. Now you know about warrants. You're pretty smart for a little thug." The word thug hit Marcus like a punch in the stomach. He had never been called that before. He was an honor roll student. He volunteered at the animal shelter on weekends. He helped his neighbors carry their groceries. He was not a thug. "I'm not a thug," Marcus said, tears finally starting to fall down his cheeks. "I'm a good person. I've never hurt anyone." "Good people don't walk around neighborhoods where they don't belong," Thompson said. "Good people don't dress like gang members and act suspicious." Marcus looked down at his clothes. He was wearing jeans, sneakers, and a hoodie. The same clothes that half the kids at his school wore every day. The same clothes he had worn to work hundreds of times. There was nothing gang-related about his outfit. An older man with gray hair had joined the crowd of watchers. He looked upset about what he was seeing, and he started walking toward Marcus and Thompson. "Excuse me, officer," the man said politely. "Is everything all right here? This seems like a lot of fuss over a young man walking home." Thompson turned around quickly and glared at the man. "This is police business, sir. I need you to step back and let me do my job." "I understand that," the man said calmly. "But I live on this street and I've seen this young man walking by many times. He seems like a nice kid." "Well, appearances can be deceiving," Thompson said. "This suspect was acting suspiciously and I'm conducting an investigation." "Suspect?" the man asked, looking confused. "What is he suspected of doing?" Thompson hesitated for a moment. He realized that he had not actually caught Marcus doing anything wrong. All he had were his own suspicions and prejudices. But he was too proud to admit that he might have made a mistake. "Casing the neighborhood," Thompson said finally. "Probably planning break-ins with his gang friends." Marcus was still crying quietly, picking up his scattered homework papers and trying to put his things back in his backpack. He felt completely defeated and humiliated. All he had wanted was to walk home from work and have dinner with his family. Officer Thompson was not done with Marcus yet. Even though the teenager had shown him school books, work clothes, and identification, the officer still believed Marcus was up to no good. Thompson had made up his mind and nothing was going to change it. "Turn around and put your hands on the car," Thompson ordered, pointing to his patrol car. Marcus looked confused and scared. "Why, I showed you everything I have. I proved that I go to school and work at the bookstore." "I said turn around," Thompson repeated, his voice getting louder. "I need to make sure you're not hiding anything dangerous." "But I already emptied my pockets and my backpack," Marcus said. You saw everything. Thompson stepped closer to Marcus, using his size to intimidate the teenager. Are you refusing to follow a direct order from a police officer? Because I can arrest you right now for resisting. Marcus felt trapped. He did not want to be arrested, but he also knew that what the officer was asking was not right. In his government class, they had learned that police needed a good reason to search someone. Marcus walking home from work was not a good reason. I'm not resisting, Marcus said quietly. I just don't understand why you need to search me when I haven't done anything wrong. I'll decide what's wrong and what's right, Thompson said. Now turn around or this is going to get a lot worse for you. The crowd of neighbors was watching everything. Some of them looked uncomfortable with what they were seeing, but no one spoke up to help Marcus. The gray-haired man who had tried to defend Marcus earlier was still there, but Thompson had scared him into staying quiet. Marcus slowly turned around and put his hands on the hood of the police car. The metal was cold against his palms, and he could smell the exhaust from the engine. He had never felt so powerless in his life. Thompson began searching Marcus roughly, running his hands along the teenager's arms, back, and legs. He was not gentle about it. He pressed hard and grabbed roughly like he was trying to hurt Marcus on purpose. Please don't touch me like that, Marcus said softly. You're hurting me. I'll touch you however I need to, Thompson replied. I'm looking for weapons and drugs. I don't have weapons or drugs, Marcus said. I've never even smoked a cigarette. Thompson continued his aggressive search, checking Marcus's waistband, his socks, and even the inside of his shoes. He found nothing because there was nothing to find. Marcus was exactly what he said he was, a teenager walking home from work. But Thompson was not ready to give up. He had gone too far to admit he was wrong now. He needed to find some way to justify what he was doing to Marcus. I smell marijuana on you, Thompson announced loudly, so all the neighbors could hear. Marcus spun around in shock. What? No, you don't. I don't smoke marijuana. I don't do any drugs. Don't lie to me, Thompson said. I've been a cop for 15 years. I know what marijuana smells like, and I smell it on your clothes. This was completely false. Thompson did not smell anything except the teenager's soap and deodorant. But he knew that claiming to smell drugs would give him an excuse to continue harassing Marcus. It was a trick that some bad police officers used when they wanted to search someone without a real reason. That's impossible, Marcus said, his voice shaking. I've never smoked anything in my life. Ask my parents. Ask my teachers. Ask anyone who knows me. Your parents probably don't know what you do when you're not home, Thompson said. And teachers don't know everything about their students. Marcus felt like he was living in a nightmare. Not only was the officer accusing him of crimes he did not commit, but now he was making up lies about drugs. Marcus had worked so hard to be a good student and a good person. He had never been in trouble, never broken the law, never done anything to hurt anyone. Thompson walked around his patrol car and opened the trunk. He pulled out a small device that looked like a radio. I'm calling for backup, Thompson announced. We've got a drug situation here. No, Marcus said desperately. Please don't call more police. I haven't done anything. You're making this up. But Thompson was already speaking into his radio. This is Unit 7-4 requesting backup on Elm Street. I've got a suspicious individual who appears to be under the influence of drugs. Marcus could not believe what he was hearing. The officer was lying to other police officers now. He was making Marcus sound like a dangerous drug user when nothing could be further from the truth. The teenager pulled out his phone with shaking hands. If the officer was going to lie about him, Marcus wanted to have proof of what really happened. He turned on his phone's camera and started recording. What do you think you're doing? Thompson demanded, noticing the phone. I'm recording this, Marcus said, trying to keep his voice steady. I have the right to record police officers. Thompson's face turned dark with anger. You do not have the right to interfere with a police investigation. Give me that phone right now. I'm not interfering, Marcus said, holding the phone away from Thompson. I'm just standing here recording. That's legal. Give me that phone or I'll arrest you for obstruction of justice, Thompson threatened. Marcus knew that recording police was legal. They had talked about it in his government class and he had seen videos online of people doing it. But he was also afraid of being arrested. He did not know what to do. Please, Marcus said, tears starting to fall again. I just want to go home. I haven't done anything wrong. I'm a good kid. Good kids don't walk around rich neighborhoods looking for trouble, Thompson said. Good kids don't smell like marijuana and refuse to cooperate with police. More neighbors had come out to see what was happening. Mrs. Peterson from the bookstore lived somewhere in this area, and Marcus hoped she might walk by and recognize him. Anyone who knew him could tell the police officer that he was telling the truth, but no one came to help him. Marcus was alone with an angry police officer who seemed determined to ruin his life. The teenager had never felt so scared and helpless. Thompson's radio crackled with a response. Unit 7-4, backup is on the way. 3 minutes, Marcus's heart sank. More police officers were coming, and they would probably believe whatever Thompson told them. The first officer's lies would become the official story, and no one would listen to Marcus's side. You hear that? Thompson said with satisfaction. More officers are coming, and they're going to help me figure out what you're really up to. Marcus looked at all the neighbors watching him. He looked at his school books scattered on the ground. He looked at his work uniform that proved he had a job. None of it mattered. The police officer had decided Marcus was guilty, and nothing was going to change his mind. The teenager held his phone tighter and kept recording. It might be the only way to prove what really happened. 2 police cars turned onto Elm Street with their red and blue lights flashing. Marcus watched them approach with growing fear. In just a few minutes, his quiet walk home had turned into a scene that looked like something from a crime movie. Neighbors were standing on their porches and lawns, watching like he was some kind of dangerous criminal. The first backup car stopped behind Thompson's patrol car. Officer Maria Santos got out slowly, looking around at the crowd of people. She was younger than Thompson and had only been a police officer for 3 years. Behind her came Officer James Park, who had been on the force for about 8 years. Officer Santos walked over to Thompson while Officer Park stayed by his car, watching Marcus carefully. Marcus was still holding his phone, recording everything that happened. "What's the situation, Thompson?" Santos asked quietly. Thompson puffed out his chest like he was very important. "I found this kid walking around the neighborhood acting suspicious. When I questioned him, he gave me a bunch of lies about living here and working at some bookstore. Then I smelled marijuana on him." Santos looked at Marcus, who was still standing by Thompson's car with tears on his face. The teenager looked scared and confused, not dangerous or high on drugs. She had seen many people who were actually using drugs, and Marcus did not look like any of them. "Did you find any drugs on him?" Santos asked Thompson. "Well, no," Thompson admitted, "but I definitely smell it on his clothes. He's probably high right now." Officer Park walked over to join the conversation. He was known for being fair and careful, and other officers respected his judgment. "What exactly was he doing that seemed suspicious?" Park asked. Thompson hesitated for a moment. When he said it out loud, it was going to sound pretty weak. He was walking slowly and looking around at the houses. "And he had a backpack. Plus, he doesn't look like he belongs in this neighborhood." Park raised his eyebrows. "Walking with a backpack? That's suspicious?" "It's the way he was walking," Thompson said defensively, like he was casing the place for break-ins later. Santos walked over to Marcus, who was still recording with his phone. She spoke to him in a much kinder voice than Thompson had used. "Hi there, I'm Officer Santos. Can you tell me your name and what you were doing tonight?" Marcus was surprised by how different her tone was. "My name is Marcus Williams. I was walking home from work at Peterson's Books. I stopped at the grocery store to buy milk and bread for my mother." "Where do you live?" Santos asked. "T7 Pine Street," Marcus answered quickly. "It's about 4 blocks from here. I walk this route home from work every day." Santos looked at Thompson. "Did you check his ID?" "He showed me some fake school ID and a name tag that could belong to anyone," Thompson said. "Plus some keys that he claims go to a house on Pine Street." Park walked over to Marcus's scattered belongings on the ground. He picked up the math textbook and flipped through it. The pages were full of homework problems with Marcus's name written at the top of each assignment. The handwriting was neat and careful, like someone who cared about school. "This looks like real schoolwork," Park said, "and there's a lot of it. This isn't something someone would fake." Thompson was getting annoyed that the other officers were not automatically taking his side. "Look, I know trouble when I see it. This kid was up to something." Santos examined Marcus's work uniform that was still on the ground. She had shopped at Peterson's Books before and recognized the shirt. "This looks real too," she said to Park. Marcus felt a small bit of hope. Maybe these officers would listen to him and understand that he was telling the truth. "Officers," Marcus said politely. I can call my parents to prove that I live here, or we can walk to my house right now and I can show you. Thompson jumped in quickly. He's been offering to call his parents all night. Probably wants to warn his gang friends that the police are onto them. Park looked at Thompson like he was crazy. Gang friends? Thompson, he's a kid with homework and a part-time job. What gang do you think he's in? These gang members are getting younger and younger, Thompson insisted. And they're getting smarter about hiding their activities. Santos knelt down and picked up Marcus's notebook. The pages were covered with notes about American history, math problems, and what looked like an essay about Shakespeare. This was not the notebook of a gang member. Marcus, Santos said gently. How old are you? 17, Marcus answered. I'm a junior at Westfield High School. And you work at Peterson's Books? Yes, ma'am. I work there 3 days a week, after school and on Saturdays. Mr. Peterson can tell you that I'm a good employee. Park was looking more and more, confused about why Thompson had stopped Marcus in the first place. Thompson, what specific crime do you think this kid committed? Thompson was getting frustrated. He had expected the other officers to support him without question. He was acting suspicious. And I told you I smell marijuana on him. Santos stepped closer to Marcus and sniffed slightly. She did not smell any marijuana. She smelled soap, deodorant, and maybe a little bit of the bookstore's dusty smell, but no drugs. I don't smell anything, Santos said to Thompson. Well, maybe your nose isn't as trained as mine, Thompson replied rudely. Park was starting to understand what was really happening here. He had worked with Thompson before, and knew that the older officer sometimes let his prejudices affect his judgment. Park had seen Thompson treat young black men differently than he treated white teenagers, and it made him uncomfortable. Marcus, Park said, can you tell me exactly what happened tonight from the beginning? Marcus felt relief that someone was finally asking for his side of the story. I finished work at 7 o'clock and started walking home. I stopped at the grocery store to buy milk and bread for my mother. I was walking home when Officer Thompson stopped me and started asking me questions. And then what happened? Santos asked. He made me empty my backpack and my pockets. He said I was looking at houses and planning to break into them. But I wasn't. I was just walking home same as always. Thompson was getting angrier as he watched the other officers actually listening to Marcus. Don't believe his lies. He's probably been trained by his gang to talk to police. Park had heard enough. Thompson, what gang? You keep talking about gangs, but this kid has homework and a job. Where's your evidence of any gang activity? Look at how he's dressed, Thompson said, pointing at Marcus's hoodie and jeans. That's gang clothing. Santos and Park looked at Marcus's clothes. He was wearing normal teenager clothes that you could buy at any store in the mall. There was nothing gang-related about his outfit. Thompson, Santos said carefully, I think maybe we should let this young man call his parents. No, Thompson said quickly. I'm the senior officer here and I say he's still under investigation. But Park and Santos were starting to realize that their colleague had made a serious mistake. They could see that Marcus was exactly what he said he was, a teenager walking home from work. And they could see that Thompson had probably stopped him for the wrong reasons. Marcus was still recording everything on his phone, and he was glad that these two new officers seemed more reasonable than the first one, but he was still scared and wanted to go home to his family. Officer Santos looked at Marcus with kind eyes. She could see that the teenager was scared and just wanted to go home. She had a younger brother about Marcus's age, and she would be upset if police treated him this way. Marcus, Santos said softly, I think we should call your parents. Can you give me their phone number? Marcus felt so relieved that he almost started crying again. Yes, please. My father's number is 555-0147. His name is David Williams. Thompson stepped forward quickly. Santos, I already told you this kid is lying. His parents are probably criminals too. But Santos ignored Thompson and pulled out her phone. She was starting to think that Thompson had made a big mistake, and she wanted to fix it before things got worse. Park nodded to Santos, showing that he agreed with her decision. Go ahead and make the call, he said. Santos dialed the number that Marcus had given her. The phone rang twice before a man answered. Hello? The voice sounded professional and calm. Hello, sir. This is Officer Santos with the Metro Police Department. I'm calling because we have a young man here who says he's your son. His name is Marcus Williams. There was a pause on the other end of the line. When the man spoke again, his voice was very serious. Is Marcus hurt? What happened? He's not hurt, sir. We stopped him while he was walking home and we just wanted to verify his identity. You stopped my son? For what reason? The man's voice was getting harder. Santos looked at Thompson, who was listening to the conversation. She realized she did not have a good answer. Well, sir, one of our officers thought he was acting suspiciously. Suspiciously how? Marcus walks home from work the same way every day. What could possibly be suspicious about that? Santos felt uncomfortable. When she said it out loud to Marcus's father, it sounded even weaker than it had before. I think it would be better if you could come down here, sir. We're on Elm Street near the corner of Oak. I'll be right there, the man said. And officer, I want you to know that I'm David Williams. I'm a civil rights attorney and I've handled many cases involving police misconduct. Santos felt her stomach drop. Thompson had stopped the son of a civil rights lawyer. This was going to be very bad for all of them, but especially for Thompson. We'll wait here for you. Mr. Williams, Santos said politely. When she hung up the phone, Park immediately asked what the father had said. He's a civil rights attorney, Santos said quietly. He's coming here right now. Thompson's face went white. Civil rights lawyers were the kind of people who sued police departments when officers did things wrong. They knew the law better than most cops, and they were not afraid to fight for people's rights. A civil rights attorney? Park repeated. Thompson, do you realize what you've done? Thompson was starting to panic. How was I supposed to know? The kid could have been lying about everything. But he wasn't lying, Santos pointed out. Everything he told us was true. He really does live here. He really does work at the bookstore, and he really was just walking home. Marcus was still recording with his phone, but now he felt a little bit safer. His father was coming, and these two officers seemed to understand that Thompson had made a mistake. My father is really nice, Marcus said to Santos. He's not going to be mean to you. He just wants to make sure I'm okay. Santos nodded. She believed Marcus. The teenager had been polite and respectful all night, even when Thompson was treating him badly. Thompson was walking back and forth by his car, trying to think of a way to make the situation look better. Look, he said to the other officers, maybe I was a little quick to stop him, but it's better to be safe than sorry, right? We've had break-ins in this area. Park shook his head. Thompson, you can't stop people just because of how they look or because they're walking in a nice neighborhood. You know that. I didn't stop him because of how he looks, Thompson protested. But even as he said it, he knew it was not completely true. Marcus's race had influenced his decision, even if he did not want to admit it. More neighbors were coming out to watch what was happening. Word was spreading through the neighborhood that police had stopped a teenager, and people were curious. Some of them recognized Marcus from seeing him walk by their houses, and they were surprised that he was in trouble with the police. Mrs. Rodriguez, the elementary school teacher, finally spoke up. Excuse me, officers. I know that young man. He's Marcus Williams. His family lives on Pine Street. He's a very good boy. Thompson glared at her. Ma'am, please stay back. This is police business, but Santos walked over to Mrs. Rodriguez. You know Marcus? Yes, I taught him when he was in 3rd grade. He was one of my best students. His parents are wonderful people. David Williams has helped several families in our neighborhood with legal problems. Santos looked back at Marcus, who gave Mrs. Rodriguez a small wave. The teenager looked embarrassed but grateful that someone was speaking up for him. Park was taking notes in a small notebook. He wanted to write down everything that had happened in case there were complaints later. And he was pretty sure there would be complaints. A car turned onto Elm Street, driving a little faster than normal. It was a nice black sedan, and it pulled up behind the police cars. A tall black man in a business suit got out quickly and looked around until he saw Marcus. Marcus, the man called out. Are you all right, Dad? Marcus replied, relief clear in his voice. David Williams walked quickly toward the group of police officers. He was calm but serious, and all 3 officers could tell that he was someone who was used to being in charge. Officers, David said politely but firmly. I'm David Williams, Marcus's father. Can someone please explain to me why my son has been detained? Thompson tried to speak first. Sir, your son was acting suspiciously in the neighborhood and we had to investigate. David looked at Thompson carefully. Acting suspiciously how, officer? Well, he was walking around and looking at houses and I thought he might be planning break-ins. David's expression did not change, but his voice got very quiet and serious. "Officer, are you telling me that you stopped my son for walking? Walking in the neighborhood where he lives?" Santos stepped forward. "Mr. Williams, I'm Officer Santos. I want you to know that Marcus has been very respectful and cooperative. He showed us his school ID and his work uniform. Then why is he still being detained?" David asked. Park closed his notebook and looked at Thompson. "That's a very good question," he said. David Williams walked straight to his son and put his arm around Marcus's shoulders. The teenager looked much smaller and younger standing next to his tall father. David examined Marcus's face carefully, looking for any signs that he had been hurt. "Are you injured?" David asked Marcus quietly. "No, Dad. I'm okay. Just scared," Marcus answered. David nodded and then turned to face the 3 police officers. His calm, professional manner made it clear that he was someone who dealt with legal problems every day. He was not angry or emotional, but there was something in his eyes that made all the officers nervous. "Officers," David said in a clear voice, "I need someone to explain to me exactly what happened here tonight." Thompson tried to take control of the situation. "Mr. Williams, your son was walking through this neighborhood in a suspicious manner. When I approached him to investigate, he became defensive and uncooperative." Marcus looked up at his father with surprise. "Dad, that's not what happened." "I was polite the whole time. I showed him my work clothes and my school books and everything." David held up his hand gently to Marcus, indicating that he should let his father handle this. Then he looked directly at Thompson. "Officer," David said calmly, "what specific crime did you suspect my son of committing?" Thompson shifted uncomfortably. "Well, there have been break-ins in this area. I thought he might be casing houses for future burglaries." "I see," David said. "And what evidence led you to this suspicion?" "He was walking slowly and looking around," Thompson said, but his voice sounded less confident than before. "Walking slowly and looking around," David repeated. "Officer, is walking slowly a crime?" "No, but is looking around a crime?" "No, but when you put together 2 legal activities, they become illegal," David asked. His voice was still calm, but there was an edge to it now. Officer Santos stepped forward. "Mr. Williams, I want you to know that Marcus has been very respectful throughout this encounter. He answered our questions and showed us his identification." "Thank you, Officer Santos," David said. "I appreciate that. Now, can you tell me why he's still being detained if he answered your questions and provided identification?" Santos looked at Thompson, waiting for him to answer. But Thompson was staring at the ground, realizing that he had made a terrible mistake. Officer Park decided to be honest. "Mr. Williams, I think there may have been a misunderstanding here. Your son appears to be exactly who he says he is." "A misunderstanding," David said slowly. "Officer, in my experience, these misunderstandings tend to happen more often to young black men than to other people. Would you agree with that assessment?" Park looked uncomfortable but nodded. "Yes, sir. That's probably true." David pulled out his own phone and started taking pictures of the scene. He photographed Marcus's belongings scattered on the ground, the 3 police cars, and the crowd of neighbors who were watching. "Dad," Marcus said quietly, "I recorded most of it on my phone." "Good," David said. "That was smart thinking." Thompson finally looked up from the ground. "Mr. Williams, I was just doing my job. We've had break-ins in this area, and I have to investigate anything suspicious." "Officer," David said, turning his full attention to Thompson, "let me ask you something. If you saw a white teenager walking through this neighborhood with a backpack, would you have stopped him?" Thompson's face turned red. I stop anyone who looks suspicious." "That's not what I asked," David said firmly. "I asked if you would have stopped a white teenager doing exactly the same things my son was doing." Thompson could not answer because they all knew what the truth was. He would not have stopped a white teenager for walking home from work. David continued taking pictures and asking questions. "Officer Thompson, is that right?" "What's your badge number?" Thompson reluctantly gave David his badge number and full name. David wrote everything down in a small notebook that he had pulled from his suit pocket. "Mr. Williams," Santos said, "I want to apologize for what happened here tonight. I don't think your son did anything wrong." "I appreciate that, Officer Santos," David said, "but an apology doesn't undo what happened. My son was humiliated in front of his neighbors. His belongings were searched without probable cause. He was accused of crimes he didn't commit. Marcus was picking up his scattered homework papers and putting his books back in his backpack, Some of his assignments had been damaged when Thompson threw them on the ground, and Marcus would have to do that work over again. David noticed what Marcus was doing. "Officer Thompson, you damaged my son's schoolwork." "It was just a few papers," Thompson said defensively. "Just a few papers that represent hours of my son's hard work," David replied. "Work that he'll now have to do over again because of your actions." A black car pulled up behind David's sedan. A woman with short gray hair got out carrying a professional camera with a large lens. She walked over to David and Marcus. "David," the woman said, "I got your text." "Is everyone all right?" "We're fine, Rachel," David said. "Rachel Johnson, meet my son Marcus. Rachel is a colleague of mine, and she's going to document what happened here." Rachel immediately started taking pictures of everything: the police cars, Marcus's damaged belongings, the officers, and the crowd of neighbors. She was careful and thorough, making sure to capture every detail. Thompson looked very nervous now. "Sir, you can't just bring photographers to a police scene." "Actually, I can," David said calmly. "This is a public street, and my colleague has every right to photograph what's happening here." Officer Park approached David carefully. "Mr. Williams, I think we should wrap this up. It's clear that your son wasn't doing anything wrong." "Yes, it is clear," David agreed. "But I'm concerned about why it took 3 police officers and a phone call from me for that to become clear." My son showed Officer Thompson his school ID, his work uniform, and his house keys. What more did he need to prove he belonged here? Santos looked at Thompson with disappointment. She was realizing that her colleague had stopped Marcus for no good reason, and now they were all going to be in trouble because of it. David put his arm around Marcus again. "Son, do you have everything?" "Yes, Dad," Marcus said. "Can we go home now? Mom is probably worried." "In just a minute," David said. He turned back to the officers. "I want all of your names and badge numbers. I'll be filing a formal complaint about this incident." Thompson looked like he wanted to argue, but Park stopped him. "Mr. Williams will provide you with all that information. And I want you to know that this will be investigated properly." David nodded. "I certainly hope so. Because what happened here tonight was wrong, and it can't be allowed to happen again." As father and son walked toward their car, Marcus looked back at the officers one more time. He still felt scared and confused about why he had been treated so badly. But he was grateful that his father had come to help him, and that some of the officers seemed to understand that a mistake had been made. 2 days after the incident on Elm Street, David Williams sat in his law office early in the morning preparing the formal complaints he had promised to file. He had copies of Marcus's phone recording, Rachel's photographs, and written statements from 3 neighbors who had witnessed what happened. The evidence was clear and strong. At the same time, Officer Thompson was sitting in Chief Martinez's office, looking very uncomfortable. The police chief had received David Williams's complaint the day before, and she was not happy about what she had read. "Thompson," Chief Martinez said sternly, "explain to me why you stopped this teenager." Thompson tried to give the same reasons he had given before. "Chief, there have been break-ins in that area. The kid was acting suspicious." "Suspicious how?" the chief asked. "According to the report, he was walking home from work with school books and groceries." "Well, he didn't look like he belonged in that neighborhood," Thompson admitted. Chief Martinez leaned back in her chair. "Officer Thompson, you just said something that could cost this department a lot of money in a lawsuit. Do you realize that?" Thompson was starting to understand how much trouble he was in. "Chief, I was just trying to keep the neighborhood safe." "By harassing a teenager who was walking home from work?" the chief asked. "Thompson, you've been a police officer for 15 years. You should know better than this." Meanwhile, at Westfield High School, Marcus was trying to focus on his classes, but he kept thinking about what had happened. His friends had heard about the incident, and some of them were angry that he had been treated so badly. Others were scared that the same thing might happen to them. During lunch, Marcus's best friend Jake sat down next to him in the cafeteria. "Man, I can't believe that cop did that to you. Are you okay?" "I guess," Marcus said. "I keep thinking about it, though. I was so scared." "Your dad is going to sue them, right?" Jake asked. "He's filing complaints," Marcus said. "He says we need to make sure this doesn't happen to other kids." That afternoon, David Williams walked into the mayor's office carrying a thick folder of documents. Mayor Rebecca Thompson, no relation to Officer Thompson, had agreed to meet with him after reading his initial complaint. Mr. Williams, the mayor said, shaking his hand, thank you for bringing this to my attention. I've reviewed your materials and I'm very concerned about what happened to your son. Thank you, Mayor Thompson, David said. This isn't just about Marcus. This is about a pattern of behavior that needs to change. The mayor nodded. I agree. I've already spoken with Chief Martinez about implementing new training programs for our officers. At the police station, Officers Santos and Park were also meeting with Chief Martinez. Unlike Thompson, they were there to give their honest account of what had happened that night. Chief, Santos said, I have to tell you that I don't think Officer Thompson had any good reason to stop Marcus Williams. The kid was clearly just walking home from work, Park agreed. When we arrived as backup, Thompson told us the situation was serious. But when we talked to Marcus, it was obvious that he was telling the truth about everything. Chief Martinez appreciated their honesty. Thank you both for your truthful report. This kind of integrity is what we need more of in this department. A week later, the local newspaper ran a story about the incident. The headline read, Police Stop Teenager Walking Home from Work. The article included quotes from David Williams, Chief Martinez, and several neighbors who had witnessed what happened. Mrs. Rodriguez, the elementary school teacher, was quoted saying, Marcus is a wonderful young man from a good family. It was wrong to treat him like a criminal when he was just walking home. The newspaper story led to more attention from civil rights groups. The local NAACP chapter announced that they would be monitoring the police department's response to the incident. 2 weeks after that night on Elm Street, Officer Thompson was called into Chief Martinez's office again. This time she was not alone. The department's internal affairs investigator was there, along with a representative from the city's legal department. Officer Thompson, Chief Martinez began, after a thorough investigation, we have determined that your actions on the night of March 15th were not justified and violated department policy. Thompson's heart sank. What does that mean for me? You are being suspended without pay for 2 weeks, the chief said. When you return, you will be required to complete 40 hours of training on constitutional policing and bias awareness. You will also be on probation for 1 year. Thompson wanted to argue, but he knew it could have been much worse. He could have been fired, and he still might be if something like this happened again. At the same time, positive changes were happening throughout the police department. Chief Martinez announced new policies requiring officers to document the specific reasons for any stop, especially in cases involving young people. All officers would be required to take training courses on racial bias and community policing. The department also created a new community advisory board that would include representatives from different neighborhoods, including David Williams. The board would review complaints and help the police build better relationships with the community. Marcus slowly began to feel better about what had happened. He continued working at Peterson's books, and Mr. Peterson had been very supportive when he heard about the incident. Several neighbors had stopped by his house to apologize for not speaking up that night and to tell his family that they supported them. One evening, about a month after the incident, Marcus was walking home from work along the same route. He felt nervous at first, but then he saw Officer Santos driving by in her patrol car. She waved at him through the window and he waved back. When Marcus got home, his father was in the kitchen helping his mother make dinner. His little sister Emma was doing her homework at the kitchen table. How was work today? His mother asked, giving him a hug. Good, Marcus said. Mr. Peterson let me help a customer find some books for her book club. David looked at his son with pride. I'm glad you're feeling better about walking home. I am, Marcus said. And Dad, I'm glad you taught me to record what happened that night. That video is helping other kids learn about their rights, David had indeed shared. Marcus's video, with his permission, with civil rights groups who used it to teach young people about how to interact with police. The video had already helped several other families who had experienced similar problems. Chief Martinez kept her promise about making changes in the police department. 6 months later, complaints about unfair treatment by police had decreased by 40%. Officers were receiving better training, and the Community Advisory Board was helping to rebuild trust between the police and the neighborhoods they served. Marcus never forgot what happened that night on Elm Street, but he chose to use the experience to help other people. He started volunteering with a youth organization that taught teenagers about their constitutional rights. He spoke at community meetings about his experience and encouraged other young people to stay calm and respectful when dealing with police, while also knowing their rights. Officer Thompson eventually completed his training and returned to work, but he was a changed person. The experience had forced him to confront his own biases and think more carefully about how he treated people. He never again stopped someone without a clear legal reason. A year later, David Williams received a letter from a mother whose son had been stopped by police in a similar situation. But this time the officers had followed the new procedures, treated the teenager respectfully, and released him quickly when they realized he had done nothing wrong. The mother thanked David for fighting to make those changes happen. Marcus graduated from high school with honors and received a scholarship to study law in college. He wanted to follow in his father's footsteps and help protect people's rights. On graduation day, as he walked across the stage to receive his diploma, Marcus thought about that scary night when he was just trying to walk home from work. The incident had been frightening and unfair, but it had also shown him the importance of standing up for what was right. It had brought his community together and led to positive changes that would help other young people in the future. Most importantly, it had taught Marcus that even when bad things happen, good people can work together to make things better. Chief Martinez attended Marcus's graduation ceremony. Afterward, she shook hands with David Williams and thanked him for his patience and persistence in working with the police department to create positive change. Your son handled a difficult situation with grace and maturity, she told David. He's going to make an excellent lawyer someday. Marcus smiled as he listened to their conversation. He had learned that justice was not always quick or easy, but it was always worth fighting for, and he was ready to spend his life helping to make sure that what happened to him would happen to fewer and fewer young people in the future.